The most dangerous kind of person is the one who gives everything while expecting nothing in return, because eventually, the only thing left to offer is their life. In late February 2023, the community of East Point, Georgia gathered to lay to rest Darius Coleman, a devoted son, brother, and by all accounts, a good man who worked 2 jobs to provide for his family. As his casket was lowered into the earth, his wife, Sabrina, dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, receiving condolences with dramatic sighs. But just 2 hours later, Sabrina Coleman was in the arms of another man, in the very bed she had once shared with her husband. The only witness to this betrayal was Terrence Coleman, Darius's younger brother, who had stopped by to collect their late father's prized possession, a gold watch that had been passed down to Darius before his death. What unfolded next would leave one person dead, another facing murder charges, and an entire family shattered by secrets that should have been exposed long before a funeral became the prelude to yet another tragedy. This is a story of what happens when loyalty is repaid with betrayal, when grief hardens into rage, when the mask of marriage slips to reveal the monster beneath. Sometimes, the real funeral isn't for the person lowered into the ground, but for the truth that died long before. If you're ready to uncover how a grieving widow went from arranging a burial to becoming the subject of one in less than 72 hours, hit that subscribe button and notification bell right now. Because this story of deception, revenge, and shattered trust may be the most shocking we've ever told. To understand what happened in that bedroom after the funeral, we must first understand a man who should have been there. Darius Coleman was born in 1982 in East Point, Georgia, the oldest son of Elaine and Robert Coleman. Raised in a household where hard work, respect, and family were sacred, Darius absorbed those lessons early and carried them throughout his life. Former teachers described him as reliable, conscientious, the kind of student who never sought shortcuts. He wasn't the star athlete or the valedictorian, but he was a student who showed up early to help set up events, stayed late to clean up, and never once complained. When Robert Coleman died of a heart attack during Darius's senior year of high school, the 18-year-old stepped into his father's shoes without hesitation. He postponed college to help his mother raise his younger brothers, Terrence and Marcus. He also took over his father's shifts at the auto repair shop, learning the business from the ground up. Terrence, just 2 years younger, remembers that time vividly. Darius never complained. Not once. He'd work all day, come home to help Mom with dinner, then stay up late studying so he could still take community college classes. He just carried it all. In 2010, Sabrina Johnson entered Darius's life. By then, at 28, Darius had earned his associate degree in business, was managing the auto shop, and had saved enough for a down payment on a modest home. Sabrina was 25, already a single mother of 2 children by 2 different fathers. According to friends, Darius was instantly captivated by her beauty, her confidence, and what he believed was her strength in raising children alone. What he failed to notice were the warning signs. Sabrina had never held a job longer than 6 months. Her children's fathers were absent, and her expensive lifestyle, designer clothes, salon visits, lavish birthday parties, was funded by boyfriends and relatives she eventually discarded. Friends tried to warn him. Terrence was the most vocal. "I told him she was using him," he later admitted. But Darius said everyone deserved a chance at happiness. He said her kids deserved stability, and he could be the one to give it to them. In 2012, after just 8 months of dating, they married. By then, Sabrina was pregnant with her 3rd child by a man she had been seeing shortly before Darius. According to multiple sources, Darius knew the baby wasn't his but vowed to raise the child as his own. That was Darius. His mother Elaine said through tears, always trying to save everyone else, never thinking about himself. But the changes began almost immediately after the wedding. Sabrina quit her part-time job at a beauty supply store, saying, "I need to focus on the children." Soon after, she began complaining about their modest 3-bedroom home. "The kids need more space. We deserve a better neighborhood." To meet her demands, Darius took on a 2nd job as a night security guard at a warehouse. His already long days stretched into nights. Friends who once saw him often now rarely did. Sabrina's expectations only grew. Hair extensions, weekly nail appointments, Botox treatments, designer wardrobes. When family asked how she could afford it, Sabrina spoke vaguely of investments and side hustles that never seemed to exist. What worried loved ones more, however, was Darius's growing isolation. Family dinners became rare. Phone calls went unanswered. His once close bond with Terrence was reduced to quick visits when Darius could slip away. Terrence never stopped trying. I knew something wasn't right. My brother was disappearing into this life where he just worked and handed over paychecks. But he wouldn't hear anything against her. It was like he made a choice and couldn't admit it was killing him. By 2022, the toll was visible. Doctors warned him about dangerously high blood pressure, stress-induced symptoms, and fatigue. He was prescribed medication he often couldn't afford to refill. Loved ones saw him nodding off at church, at family gatherings, even once a stoplight. Meanwhile, Sabrina's social media told another story. Photos of girls' trips to Miami, shopping sprees in Atlanta, and spa weekends painted the picture of a carefree woman, while Darius worked himself into the ground. The last photo of Darius Coleman was taken just 3 days before his death at the shop's holiday party. Co-workers remembered his upbeat spirit, but said he looked like he hadn't slept in years. No one knew they were seeing him alive for the last time. On February 9th, 2023, Darius woke up at 5 a.m. Just as he always did, he prepared breakfast for Sabrina's children, teenagers who, by all accounts, respected the man who raised them as his own. Her oldest daughter, Deja, later told investigators, "He made sure we had everything for school. Mom was always asleep. He checked our homework, signed permission slips, all that. He did it all." The final text exchange between Darius and Sabrina came at 7:23 a.m., after he dropped the kids at school and arrived at work. Darius said, "Don't forget, I left the light bill money on the counter. It's due today." Sabrina replied, "I need more than that. Getting my hair done at 11. Darius then said, "I don't get paid till Friday. The bill has to be paid today, or they'll cut it off again." Sabrina said, "Figure it out. You know how important this appointment is. I've been waiting 3 weeks." During his lunch break, Darius was spotted at a check-cashing store taking out a high-interest loan, his third in 2 months, to cover both the bill and Sabrina's salon appointment. At 3:47 p.m., surveillance footage from the shop showed him sliding out from under a car, clutching his head. He staggered, collapsed, and never got up again. Co-workers called 911, but by the time paramedics arrived, he was unresponsive. At Atlanta Memorial Hospital, doctors fought for over an hour, but the damage was irreversible. Darius Coleman had suffered a massive stroke. Medical records later confirmed what his doctor had warned for years. Unchecked blood pressure, relentless stress, and exhaustion had created a ticking time bomb in his brain. Sabrina arrived at the hospital more than 2 hours after being notified, her hair freshly styled, complaining about having to cut her appointment short. In sharp contrast, Terrence Coleman dropped everything and made it to the hospital within 20 minutes. Staff immediately noticed a difference. Terrence devastated, hovering anxiously over his brother's care, while Sabrina appeared irritated, glued to her phone. As Terrence spoke with doctors and called relatives, Sabrina was texting someone saved her phone under the initial D. Investigators later confirmed this was Deshawn Howard, a man with whom she was involved. Their messages were explicit, even making plans to meet once things settled down. One message from Sabrina, sent at 9:17 p.m., less than an hour after her husband's death, read, "It's done. He's gone. Now we don't have to worry anymore." Howard's reply was chilling in its boldness. "Good. Now we can be together for real. That house is yours now." In the days following Darius Coleman's death, Sabrina's behavior raised suspicions. She argued with the funeral director over costs, despite her husband having a life insurance policy specifically for burial expenses. She rushed the arrangements, demanding the earliest possible service date. According to her daughter Deja, Sabrina spent more time rifling through Darius's financial papers and mourning. Deja recalled overhearing her mother on the phone, discussing the life insurance payout, and wondering aloud how soon the check would arrive. During this time, Sabrina's communication with Deshawn Howard grew constant. In just 3 days, they exchanged more than 200 messages, mapping out their future, renovating the house, getting rid of Darius Coleman's belongings, and moving forward together. The funeral was held at New Hope Baptist Church, where Darius had been a member since childhood. It was packed, a testament to how deeply he had touched lives through his kindness, work ethic, and generosity. Yet mourners couldn't help but notice Sabrina. She wore a sleek designer black dress many thought looked more suited for a cocktail lounge and a church service, 6-inch stilettos, diamond earrings Darius had once worked overtime to buy, and freshly done acrylic nails. Throughout the 2-hour service, Sabrina was seen checking her phone repeatedly, sighing audibly during long eulogies, and looking impatient rather than grief-stricken. When Terrence gave a heartfelt tribute to his brother, security cameras caught Sabrina rolling her eyes. Terrence's words, however, would later feel prophetic. "My brother gave everything he had to the people he loved. He gave until there was nothing left but his life. And in the end, that's what it cost him, his life." After the burial, tradition called for a repast at the Coleman family home. Relatives had prepared food, but Sabrina quickly dismissed the gathering. She told guests she was too overwhelmed to host, and by 2:45 p.m., she had ushered everyone out, including Darius's immediate family. Phone records revealed that minutes later, she called Deshawn Howard, who had been waiting nearby. Meanwhile, Terrence realized he had forgotten to retrieve something of immense sentimental value, his late father's vintage Omega watch, which Darius had worn every day. It wasn't about money, Terrence later explained. That watch was the last thing our dad gave him. I couldn't stand the thought of Sabrina pawning it off. I knew my brother would have wanted me to keep it. Around 3:30 p.m., just 2 hours after the funeral, Terrence returned to the Coleman home with his friend DeAndre Moore. They noticed a Dodge Charger parked a few houses down, but thought little of it. DeAndre stayed in the car while Terrence walked up to the house. The front door was slightly ajar. Strange, especially on a day when visitors might stop by. I knocked and called her name, Terrence later told police. When there was no answer, I got worried. Leaving a door open like that wasn't safe, especially with my brother's things inside. He stepped inside cautiously. The house was quiet except for faint music and muffled laughter coming from the back. At first, he thought maybe Sabrina was having a breakdown. People grieve in different ways, he explained. I thought maybe she was watching old videos of my brother to cope. But as he moved down the hall toward the master bedroom, the truth revealed itself. Through the cracked door, Terrence saw Sabrina, still in her funeral dress, barefoot now, straddling a shirtless man. It was Deshawn Howard. A bottle of champagne sat on the nightstand, the bed still covered in the same sheets his brother had slept in days earlier. I couldn't process it, Terrence said later. We had just buried my brother, and there she was, laughing and drinking with another man. When Terrence confronted her, Sabrina's response was ice cold. Darius is dead. Get over it. I have to move on. I need someone who can give me what I deserve. Howard, standing 6'4" and weighing nearly 240 pounds, quickly inserted himself. His background check would later reveal a history of violence and drug charges. Towering over Terrence, he sneered. Get out before I make you regret coming here. This is Sabrina's house now. You and your family aren't welcome. The standoff exploded into violence. Howard lunged, slamming Terrence into the hallway wall. Though smaller, Terrence fought back with the adrenaline of grief and rage. Sabrina screamed for Howard to teach him a lesson as they grappled, crashing into furniture and knocking over framed photos from the funeral. A side table shattered when Howard drove Terrence into it, leaving him bloodied and with a broken nose. Terrence fought only to survive. When Howard pinned him against the wall, Terrence bit down on his forearm, forcing Howard to release him. Terrence stumbled toward the front door, but Howard chased him outside. DeAndre, seeing the fight spill onto the lawn, jumped out to help his friend. Witnesses later said this triggered Howard's next move. Shouting, "I've got something for both of you," he sprinted toward the Dodge Charger and retrieved a handgun. Doorbell camera footage from a neighbor captured Sabrina pointing toward Terrence and DeAndre as Howard returned, gun in hand. The men raised their hands and backed away, but Howard fired. The first shot missed. As he aimed again, Sabrina stepped forward. Whether to stop him or to join him, accounts differ. The bullet struck her in the neck. She collapsed instantly. DeAndre, a former serviceman with first aid training, rushed to apply pressure while Terrence dialed 911. According to the call transcript, Terrence's first words to the dispatcher were frantic. "Please help. My brother's wife has been shot. Please hurry." In the chaos, Howard fled the scene in his Dodge Charger, taking the weapon with him. He was captured roughly 6 hours later at a motel outside Atlanta, where he was attempting to cross state lines. Meanwhile, Sabrina was rushed to Atlanta Memorial Hospital, the very same hospital where her husband Darius Coleman had died only 3 days earlier. Doctors fought to save her life, but the damage was overwhelming. The gunshot had caused catastrophic blood loss and oxygen deprivation to her brain. Though surgeons managed to repair the torn carotid artery, the neurological damage was irreversible. For 3 days, Sabrina remained on life support as her children, parents, and, surprisingly, even Terrence's family maintained a silent vigil by her bedside. A week later, Sabrina was pronounced dead at the age of 38. The official cause was listed as a gunshot wound to the neck, with resulting cerebral anoxia. As detectives dug deeper, evidence emerged that painted the tragedy in a chilling new light. A forensic sweep of Sabrina and Howard's electronic devices revealed their secret relationship, stretching back at least 18 months. Their affair had been anything but casual. Hotel receipts showed near-weekly meetings, often during hours when Darius was working his second job. Financial records further revealed that Sabrina had been funneling money to Howard, funds siphoned directly from Darius's accounts. In just the 6 months before Darius' death, more than $17,000 had been transferred. Even more disturbing were text messages between them. In November 2022, Sabrina wrote, "Doctor says his BP is through the roof. Matter of time before something happens. Once he's gone, we get the $250,000 and can finally do whatever we want." Howard's reply was even colder. "Make sure he keeps working both jobs. More stress equals faster results." Perhaps the most heartbreaking testimony came from Deja, Sabrina's oldest daughter, now in the care of her biological father, Robert, who had re-entered her life after the tragedy. The 17-year-old gave investigators a glimpse into the Coleman household. "Mom was always telling Darius he wasn't doing enough," Deja explained. "No matter how hard he worked, it was never good enough. Sometimes she'd even hide his blood pressure medicine, saying we couldn't afford it. Then she'd go get Botox the same day." Although Darius's death had initially been ruled natural causes, these revelations forced a secondary medical review. While the examiner couldn't definitively label a homicide, they concluded that systematic psychological abuse and deliberate interference with his treatment had likely played a significant role in his fatal condition. Deshawn Howard was charged with second-degree murder for Sabrina's death, as well as aggravated assault on Terrence Coleman, illegal possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and multiple lesser counts. If convicted on all charges, he faced up to 60 years behind bars. In an unexpected legal maneuver, his defense attempted to shift the blame onto Sabrina herself, arguing that she had manipulated him the same way she had manipulated Darius. They presented messages suggesting Sabrina promised Howard both the life insurance payout and Darius's home in exchange for his loyalty. In his statement, Howard claimed, "She told me she had nothing to do with Darius's death, but she sure seemed to be counting on it happening soon." After a tense 3-week trial, Howard was found guilty on all counts except the attempted murder of Terrence, which was reduced to aggravated assault. He was sentenced to 40 years, with eligibility for parole after 25. For Terrence Coleman, the verdict brought little peace. "Nothing brings my brother back," he told reporters. "Darius deserved so much better. He gave everything, and in the end, the people closest to him just took until there was nothing left." Today, Darius and Sabrina Coleman lie in the same cemetery, though her family chose a burial plot far away from his. On Darius's headstone, beneath his name and dates, is an epitaph chosen by his loved ones. He gave everything until there was nothing left to give but his life itself. Sabrina's grave is marked by a starkly simple stone, just her name and dates, a bleak reminder of a woman who demanded luxury in life, but found only infamy in death. The tragedy of Darius Coleman isn't just that he died too young, or even that his death may have been hastened by those who should have loved him most. The deeper tragedy is that throughout his life, Darius never recognized his own worth beyond what he could provide for others. Raised to believe that a man's value lies in sacrifice, he became easy prey for someone who twisted that principle into a weapon against him. While Sabrina saw Terrence only as a means of financial gain, she failed to recognize the true treasure she had, a man of integrity, compassion, and unwavering commitment. If this story made you think, made you question, made you wonder, what would you have done? Subscribe for more gripping, real-life stories that challenge everything you think you know. Because in the end, truth is always stranger than fiction. Join the journey. Hit that button and be part of the next stories. This is Ruthless Realities. Until next time.